How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Set 6, and today it is time for the first chapter of Episode 2 of The First Soldier. These titles are going to get a bit long, but the chapter is out. The chapter is actually quite good and interesting. It sets up quite a few fun things, so we're not going to waste any time. We're just going to jump straight into it. Like the video, subscribe for future content, but here we go. Now, the chapter opens up with the intro that we've seen. It's the previous trailer. It's the trailer that we saw at the end of episode 1 of The First Soldier. And it's that introduction where we see a black cloak walking through a forest and they've got a camera in hand. I'm pretty confident that that is a character that we're going to meet very soon called Bach-man. But maybe not. Maybe it's a misdirect. We shall see. The intro itself is mostly the same, but there are a few slight differences in it. And the biggest difference is probably the inclusion of Alissa in this trailer footage, and Alissa is a character that we'll meet later on in the chapter, but we get a first glimpse of her in this introduction. So we'll come back to Alissa a little bit later on, but she's talking about how the land is home to a mysterious power, everything like that we've already seen in the initial trailer. We see a few shots of locations that we're going to get to, and these are all later on in this episode of The First Soldier, not even in this chapter, because we don't meet Alissa until right at the end of the chapter, and all of these shots are the party and Alissa walking through an area. So a lot of this stuff is stuff that we won't cover in this episode just purely because we don't interact with it. But there's an interesting thing here with the flickers and the purple wisps that keep appearing. They kind of seem like they're focused around Alissa a little bit, but not really. Or at least not only focused on her. It just seems to be something that's signifying that we're hopping between memories here and something's not quite right. Don't get me wrong, I think there is potentially some sus stuff going on with Alissa, but we'll get to that later on. But for this introduction here, we're just kind of hopping about, and I don't think the purple means too much at this point, although it is very similar to the purple that we see surrounding Hojo, and it's obviously an indicator, usually, of Jenova. So keep an eye on that. Anyway, we keep on going through this introduction, and we get one interesting line from Alissa, which is where she says that she can't shake the feeling that when Sephiroth takes hold of that sword, something we'll come to later in the chapter, the world is going to change. Do we need a worlds counter as we go through The First Soldier? And I'm not talking about the worlds that we see or anything like that. I'm just talking about how many times the word worlds comes up, because I feel like they keep throwing it into things at the minute just to kind of get people to go, what? Worlds? You said worlds? Maybe that's just me. Anyway, continuing on. We get the shot of Super Saiyan Hojo, and then we go to the helicopter. And the helicopter, this is a scene that we've already seen. Angeal tries to introduce himself to Sephiroth, and Sephiroth just goes back to his nap and isn't particularly interested in hearing Angeal at the moment. And this is something that we'll get into as we go through the chapter, because Sephiroth's suffering. Sephiroth is definitely suffering from the events of Rador. We then get a look at Bach-man, who's behind his camera filming the interaction between Angeal and Sephiroth, and he says that this is the most important work of his life, and that the course of history was altered forever. Not a world, right? They've not said worlds, but I think this maybe gets its own sub-counter, like altering fate and destiny. I don't know. They've just got me on edge and watching for everything. But yeah, they're setting it up that something massive is going to happen here. Anyway, we flip to the in-game models. Angeal's introducing himself further to Sephiroth, talking about where he's from, how old he is, mentions dumb apples to him, and while this is going on, Bach-man's just being weird and filming him. But then Angeal, for the first time, goes in on Sephiroth, and he points out that, you know, even though Angeal is younger and less experienced, he's been named as the leader for this mission. And he points out that that's because while Sephiroth may be super strong, he ain't no leader. And he digs at him a little bit further, saying, oh, is that what you do? Just pull your face and expect everyone to keep a wide berth. And he points out that that is not going to work on him. All the time, Sephiroth just remains quiet and just doesn't even entertain the conversation. And Angeal says, oh, I bet you've never even been reprimanded. And this forces Sephiroth to flash back to the previous episode of The First Soldier, where Glenn basically says to him that if he whistles to round the group up ever again, he's going to beat the shit out of him. And it was definitely a needed moment. Sephiroth needed that, and he needed to be put in his place a little bit. And it just shows that the events of Rador are very fresh in Sephiroth's mind still. Anyway, Angeal says that he's up to the challenge of dealing with Sephiroth, and we continue. Now, we find out from narrator Bach-man that Sephiroth and Angeal have arrived at the ruins of Robio. And Robio is an area located on the southern tip of Wutai. and that we are on a search and rescue mission, as a group of soldiers had been sent out here and haven't been heard from since. So that's the mission: Angeal and Sephiroth search and rescue, Bach-man tagging along to film things. And we find out that Bach-man is the current chief of Shinra's Records and Archives division. And we continue on a little bit and we find out that this is his job. He's here to film the Igara Forbidden Zone, which is the area that we're in now, and Robio. So the Igara Forbidden Zone must be an area within Robio. So he's here to gain some footage of that, but he's also here to get footage of Sephiroth, who's this big hero, and the propaganda train is kicking into gear. And as we already had it explained to us in the previous episodes of The First Soldier with Glenn and everybody, you know, Sephiroth says that he didn't really do a lot of the things that they say that he did. They just kind of make him look really good for the public and for perception. And here we are again with the same thing going on. So Shinra controlling the narrative. Standard. Angeal points out that the missing soldiers are his partners, his friends, his allies, and that he's going to get them out of there. He's going to do whatever it takes to get them back to Midgar. So he's putting on the heroic show that Bach-man wants. While Sephiroth's just kind of stood there in the background, not really responding to anybody, just kind of looking around, disinterested. This is very much a Sephiroth who does not want to be here. He's not interested, he doesn't want to talk to people, he doesn't want to perform for people, he'll kill things if they turn up, that's it. We press forward a little bit and we get attacked by an enemy, and Sephiroth just stands aside and lets Angeal deal with it, and after the fight Angeal gives Sephiroth a little bit and says, like, why didn't you fight? What was going on? And Sephiroth just says, well, you had it handled, which makes Bach-man step in and point out that PR wants footage of Sephiroth, so Sephiroth needs to start killing some things. And he reiterates something from earlier where he says that we're all professionals here, let's not get in each other's way. Let's be professional and help each other. And Sephiroth responds to this saying that he had no idea there was going to be any filming, and Angeal says, well, maybe you should have come to some of the briefings and then maybe you would have understood that. So it seems like Sephiroth's definitely detached himself from everything, and he's kind of been doing his own thing at Shinra, which we'll learn more about as the chapter progresses, because we get a couple of indications of what Sephiroth may have been doing. We press further on, and we learn a little bit more about this area, and Bach-man tells us that this place is called the Igara Forbidden Zone, and the people of Wutai do not come here. They don't set foot in its borders. And this is why Shinra sent a mission. Because, you know, if this forbidden zone and the people aren't allowed to go there, surely there's some secrets there, some military secrets maybe, or something else. So Shinra, being Shinra, sent a bunch of people in. And every single one of them has gone missing. No distress signals, no radio transmissions, nothing. All gone. Angeal and Bach-man are kind of looking around and saying, oh, it must have took some massive destructive power in order to ruin a village like this. And Bach-man says it looks like no one's been here for a long time. And they ask Sephiroth what he thinks, and he's like, I don't think. I'm just here to kill things and find people. Don't worry about it. And Angeal points out to him that he's missing out. He's missing out on a new experience, and he's missing out on learning things. And that he should stop treating things so much as a job, and, you know, actually commit and get involved and be a part of this mission. But Sephiroth ain't feeling that. Sephiroth isn't feeling it, and gradually over the course of the chapter he opens up a little bit, but nowhere near to the degree that we saw in the previous episode of The First Soldier, back when we were in Rador with Glenn and everybody like that. Anyway, Bach-man, super happy with the footage that he's getting, and the group continue on and delve deeper into the ruins. And as we do press further into the ruins, we begin to find dead soldiers. Now, they're all second class from what I can see, but we continue to find them. We find the first one, we get attacked by a couple of enemies, and Sephiroth jumps into combat. And I will take this opportunity to point out that if you've played any Ever Crisis and you've leveled Sephiroth up anywhere, you'll probably be fine to play through this first chapter. I know that they have made the difficulty on story modes easier. I also know that a lot of people still don't care and don't want to play the game, which is why we're doing this. But, you know, you could probably play through this chapter without any grinding at this point, I would say. I've got Sephiroth moderately high level, and as soon as Sephiroth jumps into combat, we just smash through everything. Like, most of the enemies are like level 10, level 12, level 15. It's a pretty chill chapter, so if you have got the game and you're worried about not playing it because you'd have to grind, you could do this chapter. I don't know how that will pan out for future chapters. We'll carry on. Now, after the fight, Angeal identifies the corpse of the soldier, and it's someone that Angeal at least loosely knew. He knows his name, and it seems like he's been dead for about 3 days, so they would have had no chance of getting there in time to save him. We keep moving on, and Angeal makes a note of where the corpse is so that he can return and gather the corpses in order to return them back to Midgar once we've found the others. And we continue walking through this area, and Angeal points out that the soil here isn't like anything that he's seen before. It's fine as ash, but glitters like glass. And Bach-man speculates that it probably has something to do with why this place is called the Forbidden Zone. It's possible, it's possible. I mean, it makes me immediately think of, like, when you know, have a big impact of some sort, or a big flame of some sort. Sometimes it can turn parts of the ground into glass, you know, like sand and stuff like that. It can fuse them instantly. And it makes me think maybe something like that has happened here at some point, but probably not. I don't know, it's going to be interesting to find out more about that. We keep moving anyway, and we find the second corpse, and while Angeal's doing his investigative stuff with the body and identifying it, Bach-man points out that Sephiroth knew Lucrecia, who was in charge of training the P-models of soldiers. And Bach-man says that her, Glenn and Matt assaulted an engineer on their last mission and fled, and no one has seen them since. So we know immediately at this point that Glenn, Matt and Lucrecia have bounced. They're not anything to do with Shinra anymore, or at least not as far as Bach-man knows. Maybe Bach-man doesn't have as much access to information, but on the face of it, they're gone. And I would expect that given what went down in Rador. And Sephiroth has another little moment where he flashes back to the events of episode 1 of The First Soldier. And just as a reminder, if you've not watched all of episode 1 of The First Soldier, all of it is on the channel. We've got full breakdowns in the same style as this, so go and check them out. You'll get all of the story information from those chapters, and some speculation as well. Some speculation. Anyway, Bach-man asks Sephiroth what they were like, and Sephiroth, like I say, has this flashback to the time where he was musing on the fact that he's never had friends before, really, and this is what it must feel like to have fun. So he's got positive memories of his time with Glenn, Matt and Lucrecia. Sephiroth says that they never spoke about personal matters, they were just another squad that he was assigned to, and that kind of fits in with how he's behaving now, so Angeal and Bach-man wouldn't doubt it. But we know the truth, we've played through that chapter, and he does develop a friendship with the group. It's a bit of a strained one, but it's a friendship nonetheless. Which forces Bach-man to point out that, you know, it's probably for the best that you didn't mix up with these traitors who didn't see the hero in their midst, so he's painting Sephiroth as the hero, and Glenn, Matt and Lucrecia as traitors. And Sephiroth pauses for a moment after this as they walk off and just has a moment to himself, and you can see that the events of Rador have definitely had an impact on him. Because he'd had this time in Rador and it was a struggle for him, but he made friends. He got his first actual connections with real people who told him how it was and didn't pander to him or anything like that. And then he lost that. It's almost like he's grieving the loss of that friendship. And we all know what happens to people who are Jenova subjects and soldier subjects. We all know what happens to them when certain things happen, like their mental state takes a hit. We've all seen what happens to those people. I mean, not like that's going to be relevant here or anything, no. Continuing on. After a few moments, Sephiroth stops and points out to Angeal that even though they're both soldiers, Sephiroth's special. Sephiroth's the only one who gets to speak directly to Professor Hojo, who is the man who's dedicated to expanding their limits. So, even though we're working together now, we will never be friends. And this is Sephiroth putting up a barrier so that he doesn't have to go through the loss that he's already gone through with Glenn, Matt and Lucrecia. It's not that he hates Angeal, it's that he doesn't want to get hurt. That's what it feels like to me. Let me know if you think otherwise, but 100% that's what it feels like to me. He's putting that barrier up so that he can't make another friend in order to lose another friend. Simple. And Angeal reacts to that normally, like, oh, okay, cool story, bro. And when Sephiroth walks off, he points out to Bach-man that, yeah, looks like being around the professor did wonders for his personality. And Bach-man immediately is like, I mean, off the record, yeah, obvs. So everyone knows about Hojo clearly at this point. Even at this point, everyone knows the deal with Hojo. And Sephiroth definitely isn't doing himself any favours here. Anyway, we continue exploring, and eventually find the third body. So that's 3 of the soldiers that we've found dead. Another fight ensues, Angeal watches over the body while Sephiroth takes out the enemies, and then afterwards we do the usual looking over the body, which at this point now Sephiroth gets involved in. Remember previously he was acting like, oh no, I'm just here to kill things and find people. That's all I'm here to do, I'm not here to think. Well, Sephiroth decides to have a little think, and he notices that the bodies have been killed by a blade and not by a monster, which leads Bach-man immediately to stop calling the helicopter that he was about to call and wonder if this was done by a ninja, because we all know about Wutai and their troops and stuff like that. So they're thinking, oh, so Wutai troops have done this. And Angeal does a little bit of positive reinforcement and points out that, you know, this is good, we're sharing intel, Sephiroth, good job, good work. We should do this more often. You know, that kind of energy. And Sephiroth's like, oh, okay, then something's coming for us right now. So a little bit late on the information there, but you know, he got it out, he at least told them just before the enemy attacked, so that'll be fine. And it's only a big toad, you know, there's nothing dangerous here. Anyway, we win the fight, and Sephiroth points out to Angeal, like, well, you could have sensed that anyway, it's not just me who'd be able to sense it, you could have sensed it as well. But then Angeal points out it's not just them, it's Bach-man as well, which is a fair point in honesty. Bach-man hasn't got a clue what's going on, and he's got to get the camera ready, you know, he's got to get them shots. He's got to get them shots, so we need to let Bach-man know what's going on. Got to tell him. After a while, we take a little bit of a rest, and Bach-man's questioning what the deal is with most soldiers. Like, Angeal views most soldiers as his comrades and his allies and his friends, whereas Sephiroth's very much like, what? These other soldiers? Oh, cool. And Bach-man's wondering what most soldiers feel like. Do they feel like Sephiroth, or do they feel like Angeal? Now, Angeal takes this one and says they feel like he does. You know, all of them are the best of the best. They're all capable of taking down a whole squadron on their own, except for Zack. I need to stop picking on Zack, I really do. But yeah, they're all capable of doing this and taking out a squadron of grunts on their own. But when they work together, they can do things much faster, much easier, with much less damage to the surrounding area, and much less loss of life. So, teamwork makes the dream work. Teamwork makes the hopes and dreams work. There we go. There we go. Let's go. God, I hate myself. But yeah, Sephiroth shuts that down and he's like, shut up, we've got work to do as we get attacked. We kill things, and Bach-man muses on the fact that, yo, soldiers are crazy. Who needs tactics when you've got brute force? Angeal then notes that he's wanted to work with Sephiroth for a while. You know, he's had his eye on him, he's wanted to work alongside the great hero Sephiroth. And he says that he's not going to ask for a friendship from Sephiroth, but just a little bit of camaraderie, which makes Sephiroth point out that he's just a weapon, an artificial machine of massacre, a false hero propped up to make Shinra look good. Who needs a comrade like that? And it's just that self-loathing that Sephiroth's got going. He's definitely got a lot of things going on right now, be it freezing people out so that he doesn't have to go through loss again, because, you know, he's lost a lot in his life. Like, we forget how much Sephiroth must have gone through in his younger childhood, you know, living in a lab, essentially. It's very similar to Aerith's story, if you think about it, in a lot of ways. But then on top of that, he's got this super low self-worth. He doesn't see worth in himself, he doesn't see value in himself, he just views himself as a commodity at this point. Or at least that's the message that he puts out to other people, and again, that could be him putting up barriers to avoid loss in the future. That's what it feels like. Now, Angeal tries to rebuff this by saying, well, yeah, we are, but this is why we have bonds with each other, and that's why soldiers have to foster their humanity. And Sephiroth just turns around and says, that's all a hindrance on the battlefield, and just walks off. A little later on, Bach-man asks about whether or not the two of them have fought Wutai ninjas before. Angeal says that he's fought a few in combat simulation, and Sephiroth stays quiet, and we flip to a combat simulation where Sephiroth is fighting against a variety of things. And they've done Hojo so dirty in this portrait, I love it. I love it so much. But then we see the training session where Sephiroth fights against Wutaian soldiers, and he's got a VR version of Angeal alongside him for the fight. So technically him and Angeal have already teamed up before. And then Angeal points out that he often got teamed up with Sephiroth himself because they would be teamed up with whoever was the top performer on that day. So that means Angeal is the second best soldier at this point because Sephiroth was teamed up with Angeal. He can't team up with himself, obviously. So it's Angeal who's in second place. That's a nice little interesting bit of knowledge there. It makes sense as well. I wouldn't expect Genesis to be that strong at this point, and I don't really think there's anybody else who compares to the three of them yet. So yeah, makes sense. Angeal points out that he's got a bad feeling, like he stepped foot onto a battlefield. And he says that it's because, you know, Soldier have got sharper senses, keener intuition. And Sephiroth just slaps this down. He's like, nah, maybe you just scared, mate, and just walks off. I absolutely love spicy Sephiroth. I'm so into it. A little bit further down the pathway, Sephiroth pauses again and just says, we're being watched. And Bach-man asks, is this Soldier's intuition again? And Sephiroth's like, don't be stupid. I don't have any silly powers like that, you fool, and walks off again. Like, I'm ad-libbing a little bit, but my god, I love it. I love it. One other thing to really briefly pay attention to here is that as Sephiroth walks off, we see those purple wisps that we saw in the intro trailer. The only time we see them, as far as I can remember. I'll mention them in a minute if we see them again, but I'm pretty sure this is the only time we see them in the actual gameplay. And yeah, don't know what this is supposed to mean. Is this supposed to mean that there's some sort of spiritual energy here already? Is it supposed to suggest that Jenova has a stronger influence here? Is it supposed to suggest that the life stream in this area has already been corrupted by Jenova? Lots of possibilities. Lots of possibilities. And it's entertaining that the person that we meet next is Alissa. So, yeah. These pink-purple wisps are starting to make me feel like maybe Alissa isn't Alissa. Maybe Jenova's doing what Jenova does and appearing like someone to work on Sephiroth. I don't know. But yeah, the party's being watched, and eventually we stumble upon the final member of the team that Shinra sent out, and they are alive. And they try to give us a little warning, but just before they can give us the warning, we get attacked by an old guy with a very pretty sword. And as soon as he sees it, Sephiroth like immediately pauses, and he's like, that sword, it's beautiful, I need it. And I think we can all tell where this is going. And the old man's very happy about this. He's like, oh, young man with refined tastes, I see. And Sephiroth and the old guy have a little glazing session over this sword. It doesn't last long, but it's fun. And then the old man attacks. Now, after the fight, he backs away, and he says that he is MASAMUNE, master swordsmith of Robio, and his heart and soul were poured into this steel. Now, for those of you who don't know anything about MASAMUNE, we're not going to go too deep into it, but MASAMUNE was a Japanese swordsmith from like hundreds and hundreds of years ago, around 1200, 1300, and he's generally regarded as one of, if not the greatest swordsmith in Japanese history. And then there's also the legend of Masamune and Murasama, which is about these two swordsmiths. Muramasa was the student, Masamune was the teacher, and there are a few different variations of the legends and the stories, but generally it boils down to Muramasa either challenging Masamune or both of them entering a challenge to craft a sword, and Muramasa's blade was deemed evil and bloodthirsty, whereas Masamune's blade was deemed righteous and would only cut those who deserved to be cut. That's the basic gist of it. That's the legend. And that's clearly the inspiration behind not only the sword Masamune, but this character. And in-game Masamune says that no blade will ever be created to equal this, but he has never found a warrior skillful enough to claim the sword. And Masamune says that he can't wait any longer, obviously because he's old as shit, and he needs to entrust it to a worthy warrior, which I'm gonna guess makes like the hairs on the back of Sephiroth's neck stand up on end. He knows already. Anyway, Masamune jumps away, never to be seen again. Well, not this chapter, but we cut back to the soldier that we found, Soldier Second Class, and the music changes, and we get a new version of You Can Hear the Cries of the Planet, which instantly made my hairs on the back of my neck stand on end, and we get an introduction to Alissa. Now, we tell Alissa that her companions didn't make it. She's pretty sad about that, but then she removes her helmet, and that's when we actually officially get introduced to Alissa. But as soon as she does, Sephiroth is taken aback because she bears a ludicrous resemblance to Lucrecia, or as Sephiroth knows her, Jenova. And Alissa reacts to Sephiroth's reaction. Yeah, that works. by saying, like, why are you staring at me? Do I look like your sweetheart or something? Or maybe your mother? And I'm sure internally that sends Sephiroth onto a crazy journey. An absolutely crazy journey. But yeah, we've got Alissa, and she does look very much like Lucrecia. Anyway, that's the end of the chapter right there, but that is not everything that we have, because we have 3 mini chapters that are beyond the story. Not even mini chapters, the mini segments of a chapter. And the first one is Bach-man. And for his little sub-segment of the story, he's just talking about how the mission goes, says about how they were in and out of Robio within a day, you know, they found all of the people, only one survivor sadly. You got to see Sephiroth and how insanely powerful he was, but that was only as long as he had a sword in his hand. And as soon as he put the sword away, the cracks and the flaws in Sephiroth's persona were all too apparent. And that his interest in the mission was close to zero, and that he was nowhere near ideal PR material. But, you know, that's Bach-man's job. Make the kid look good. I'm sure you can manage it. Now, the second of these chapters is a Sephiroth chapter, and again, that rendition of You Can Hear the Cries of the Planet kicks in, and Sephiroth is woken up by Jenova. But it's Lucrecia. But it's Jenova. And this is going to get a bit spoilery about Lucrecia for those of you that haven't played through other aspects of the franchise, especially the OG, FF7. But Lucrecia's not dead. She kind of is, but she isn't. But she's not here. She's not at the Shinra building. She wouldn't be here. So that immediately tells us what's going on here. This is Sephiroth having a vision, one of his Jenova visions, and that's why it's a little bit amusing to me, because not only is this a character that Sephiroth wrongly thinks is called Jenova, but this is actually Jenova that's creating this scenario right now, so the caption name is correct because it is Jenova. It amused me a little bit. Anyway, I feel like this is happening after the events of Rador, but before this mission that we're going on. And I feel like this is the case because of what I said earlier. The events of Rador have left Sephiroth in a weakened mental state, and because of that, Jenova begins to pull on those threads a little bit more, and just gradually begins the process of unravelling Sephiroth. Anyway, Jenova welcomes Sephiroth back, which, like I say, makes me think post-Rador, and eventually she gets him some pumpkin soup, and Sephiroth muses on how, you know, he wishes that she could make him this every day, and she points out, like, well, I do make it you every day, what are you talking about? And this is Jenova corrupting those memories. I'm not sure if it's active or passive. I'm not sure if it just does it passively based on the things that are most traumatic to the person and just naturally finds those weak spots, and then Sephiroth's brain does most of the work itself. I'm not sure. I've always been one of those people who's not 100% that there's a consciousness behind Jenova anymore. I kind of view Jenova as a virus almost at this point. Previously there was a consciousness, and there will definitely be some sort of genetic consciousness. You know, in the same way that when creatures are born, they know what to do. You know, genetically, they know what to do, genetic memory. I think that's going to be something that we get through Jenova in a lot of ways, but I'm still not 100% there's an active consciousness behind it. But either way, this is Jenova working into the weakest spot of Sephiroth, and it's that fear of abandonment almost. And what's the biggest source of that for him? The fact his mother's not there. And by the end of this interaction, Sephiroth's like, no, I'm sorry, you're right, you're here, sorry, I believe you, I agree. So Sephiroth amends his own memory a little bit and says that he was just confused. And Jenova makes Sephiroth promise that he won't forget how happy it makes her to cook for him. But after this we get something else, and Jenova gives Sephiroth a braid to put on his sword, and that way she'll always be with him. Now, I have gone through this chapter 3 times just to make sure that there isn't a braid on Sephiroth's sword at any point. There is the piece of red fabric, and that was there in the previous episodes as well, so that's not new. I don't think that's what we're talking about. I think there's something else possibly, but I can't see it anywhere. Because this would be another example of something being transferred from a dream into the real world, therefore throwing into question what is reality. And this is something that we've been dealing with a lot in Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth. So this would have been an interesting thing, and I'm going to keep an eye out going forwards through each chapter to see if we see this braid. We don't see it anywhere on his sword in Remake or Rebirth, and it makes me think maybe he loses it, so maybe he gets the braid and he does have it for a little bit, but then he loses it, and that pushes him further into despair maybe? I don't know. But so far, no braid. No braid. And this section finishes off with Sephiroth getting a hug from his mother. And you can see that it emotionally means a lot to him, but then the dream ends. And Sephiroth says this feels so much like a dream. They're hinting at things, man. They're really hinting at things. We need a little bit more, but they are definitely hinting at things. And we're definitely going to see this downfall of Sephiroth, 100%. And it's interesting how it mirrors with Cloud so much. These false memories, this emotional burden that pushes him into a pit of despair that allows Jenova to begin going to work on both of their psyches. Now granted, Sephiroth's the one messing with Cloud, but I feel like Hojo is the one messing with Sephiroth. So very, very, very parallel stories between Sephiroth and Cloud. And I kind of like it. But then we get to the final of these mini chapters, and this one is Angeal. And it's Jillian's birthday, and those of you who don't know who Jillian is the Jillian from Project G, Project Jillian, and she's the one who was also experimented on using Jenova cells, and this led to Angeal and Genesis. And spoilers for some Crisis Core stuff and Angeal stuff, but you know, we get our first glimpse of Angeal's stepfather, because Angeal's actual father is Hollander. What is it with these Shinra guys impregnating women to do tests on them? Like, it's weird, man. It's weird. Anyway, like I say, it's Jillian's birthday, so they've prepared a nice meal for Jillian, and they all sit down and have a little chat. We learn a little bit about Banora and Banora White, and the work that's going on to, you know, kind of process Banora White. So Genesis is knocking about, and Angeal and Genesis are close friends. They don't know at this point that they're both products of the Jenova project, I don't think, but they're close friends, and they've, you know, they're doing things, they're doing bits, and they both join Soldier together. And that's a conversation that comes up here as well, Angeal joining Soldier, and how he's going to put most of his money into the town and into the Banora White business, because he's going to be earning so much money he won't even know what to do with it. And this town and this village are the thing that made him and supported him, so he wants to do the same back. And it's just showing that Angeal is a good guy, just all-round good guy, because he is. He is. He's got the hopes, he's got the dreams, and he's a good guy. And just getting that first glimpse of Angeal's stepfather, and he calls him Dad. I don't think Angeal knows about Hollander. I can't actually remember. Answers on a postcard in the comments below if you can remember whether or not Angeal knows Hollander's his dad. I can't remember. But anyway, I think he does. I think he eventually does. I don't think he does at this point. But yeah, this is just a nice little relaxed backstory for Angeal chapter. The big one is that middle one with Lucrecia, and yeah, there's some shit going down there. I'm gonna have to keep an eye on it. But that is everything that we've got so far for chapter 1 of episode 2. Now the next chapter drops in December. They did give us a roadmap. Next month we get a Crisis Core chapter, which I'm not covering. Just play Crisis Core, come on. But in December, we get the next chapter. So hopefully we get some more answers, hopefully we get some more information. I mean, let's be honest, we'll probably get more questions than answers in these first 3 or 4 chapters. So I'm ready for that, but stuff that we can speculate about. You know, that's what I'm interested in. Things to speculate about. The MASAMUNE is going to be interesting. Sephiroth obviously gets it. It's just the journey. And this speak from Alissa about how the world is going to change when Sephiroth gets his hands on that blade. What is she talking about? Why has she got that feeling? Why does she look like Lucrecia's twin? And why did she have to go and use the word worlds? Because that's just got my Shinra sense tingling. It's not Spidey sense, it's Shinra sense. It's got it tingling. But yeah, this is a bit of a chunky one. We're going to wrap this one up now. So let me know what you're thinking about this chapter in the comments below. MASAMUNE, very interesting. Sephiroth being in the mental state that he's in after the events of Rador, and after Jenova obviously starting to corrupt him already. Like, they're the 2 big take-homes for me. The Alissa thing's a little bit weird, but I'm going to guess it's going to be mostly used as a vehicle to just prod at Sephiroth. There might not be anything sus about her at all. She might just be a normal person who just happens to look a bit like Lucrecia. That's very possible. And it could just end up being something that just keeps Sephiroth on edge for the duration of this mission. That's what it looks like. But, like I say, let me know what you're thinking in the comments below. Bach-man as well, do you think that is him in the black cloak? I'm starting to think it is. I'm starting to feel like it is, which tells me he's going to get Jenova'd up at some point. Whether or not Shinra decides that they don't want the details of this mission being public, therefore they just delete him with some Jenova stuff, I don't know. But let me know in the comments below what you're thinking. Thank you for watching the video. Like it, subscribe for future content, share the video, but more importantly than all of that, have a great day.